Hey everybody, Blave here, and this is what I look like. So today I wanted to make this video because we are in the midst of leak season for the new expansion Crimson Curse, and I want to go through the mechanics and the cards to see if they're good for Arena and what their impact I think is going to be. Again, these are just my opinions, but I wanted to share them with you guys so you get a idea of what I think about the new cards and the mechanics and see if they're worth picking in Arena. So let's get started with the first card, and that's Samum. And it's damage a unit by 3. Death Blow, move adjacent units to the other row. So Death Blow is one of the keywords that is new in Crimson Curse. I'm gonna just write it down here just to make sure I cover all the keywords. Death Blow means when a unit dies by this effect, and something happens. So for this one, it's move adjacent units to the other row. As far as an arena card, I don't think it's that good because the damage cap is at 3, and you can move stuff, but I don't know. I don't know if it's in arena. It's more about like raw points, and if all you get is movement. I think this is a more constructed card than an arena card. So 3 damage, but I don't think it's quite enough just for one card. Alright, what's the next one? So the next one's our first monster card. So it's Feast of Blood. Give an enemy unit bleeding for 6 turns. If you control a vampire, purify it first. So we're going to cover bleeding, and we're going to cover purify. So for this one, bleeding I think is a pretty good mechanic. So bleeding is it deals 1 damage a turn for how many turns it says, so this one's gonna be 6. And the other ability is purify. So purify is another one of the new keywords, and basically what it means is that it removes all statuses. Now it's not the same as lock, because for lock that removes all abilities that are written on the card. So what I have here is that, statuses are something like a shield, which we'll discuss later, locks, doomed, those go away thanks to purify, and bleeding also, and same thing with vitality, which is another thing we'll cover later. So this one is bleeding for 6 turns, but so that means 6 damage is what you can get out of this card. However, you don't get it immediately because the bleed starts on your opponent's turn. So that means that your opponent can pass, they can purify it. They can just not you get full value out of it, sorry. So I don't know how good bleeding is going to be. It's definitely going to be good against shields because it'll obviously keep ticking away at shields if you put something on. So it could be annoying in that regard, but from what I see, I think bleeding is a good mechanic, especially in long rounds. But as they said in the dev stream, it might be pretty counterable, so something to look at. And Purify, I think, is a pretty strong. I wonder if they're gonna, because there's gonna be a lot of cards that have status effects that either are beneficial or status effects on your own cards which are really detrimental, like Poison, which we'll again talk about later. But I think that Purify is going to be something that you're going to be sought after in Arena, because there's going to be a lot of status effects flying around, especially in this new expansion. So Bleeding, yeah, I think it's good for Arena, and Purify also good for Arena. I think Bleeding is going to stick around though more than in Constructed in Arena, because what are the chances your opponent has Purify cards, right? Maybe they need it for something else. So yeah, I have a feeling Bleed is going to stick around and get a lot of value in Arena. Next up is Primal Savagery. Damage an enemy unit by 2. Death Blow spawn and summon a Bear Abomination on a random allied row. So they don't have the Bear Abomination here, but it's a 5-power doomed unit. So this one is basically 7 points if you kill something. And you guys know how much I love Arrakis Venom because you can get 9 points, and I think this is better because it's easier to set up and you get 5-point body, so that's pretty cool. However, the body can be removed, but I mean, it's still 7 points, right? And you kill something. So, yeah, could be a good card in Arena. Could be. So, I'm looking forward to trying this kind of card out. Because, I mean, it's a kill spell with a little bit of upside. So, yeah. Next up is Dryad Ranger, which has another ability we're going to talk about, Harmony. And it says, deploy damage an enemy unit by 2. If it survived, give it poison. So I'm going to write this down. So Harmony actually is the keyword where if you play, when this is on the field, if you play another card of a Scoia'tael unit you don't already control's type. So if this is Dryad, you play another Dryad, it doesn't trigger. But if, let's say, you play a Gnome, it'll trigger. If you have a Dryad and a Gnome and you play another Gnome, it doesn't trigger. If you play a Dryad, Gnome, Dwarf, it'll trigger again, so on and so forth. So they said that there's going to be over like 12 different, I can't remember the number of how many different species there's going to be in Scoia'tael, but you know, in Arena, it's probably great because we have a lot of one-ofs and you can pick a lot of one-ofs. It's not like in Constructed where you have to build a deck of just like, unless you're playing Shoop or something, right? But you can pick a lot of one-ofs and get a lot of utility in Arena. So I think this card and Harmony are going to be really, really strong in Arena. Even if you just pick up random Scoia'tael units here and there, they're just going to get value. So, I mean, it's going to be unlikely that you're going to get like a full Scoia'tael deck full of different things, but who knows if that happens? It's probably super powerful. And the other reason I think this card is really good is because it can give poison. And poison is a status that something can get, and if you get poisoned again, you just destroy the units. So really good against tall units, but they said it's actually pretty dangerous. So they said it's the least prevalent of the keywords. So it gives your opponent like a bit of a, you know, choice. Do they want to purify the first poison? Do you have another one in your hand? Like, should I risk it? So I think the poisons will be a good mechanic. So Harmony and poison get a good grade from me for Arena. Harmony because you can get a lot of points because of all the one-ofs, and poison because, you know, it makes your opponent play differently because their unit might get poisoned again and they don't know. So yeah, I think both of those are really good for Arena. Next up, we got Alp. Deploy damage an enemy unit by 2. If Alp is under Blood Moon, drain an enemy unit by 2 instead. So I don't know if it's going to be worth to grab Blood Moon. I don't even know what it does, but these cards might be good if the Blood Moon is a powerful card. Again, it remains to be seen, but draining something by 2 is always really nice. So yeah, not much to say on this one because I don't really know much. So when we get more info on the Blood Moon and how to get it and how to activate it, I'll come back to these kind of cards. It might be the new, like a new synergy combo, like Death Wish was in Arena now. So yeah, we'll see. Next up, we got Plumard. It says deploy, give an enemy unit bleeding for 2 turns. We already discussed bleeding, but it has bonded, give an enemy bleeding for 4 turns instead. So bonded works that if you have a copy of the card already in play, it will get this upgraded effect. So just like with what I said with Scoia'tael and Harmony in Arena, you can also get multiples. And sometimes you don't want multiples of cards, but when you do, cards like these become really good because, I mean, if you look at this card, it's 3 plus 2 points if your opponent doesn't pass or purify it. So that's 5 for a bronze, and it can get up to 7 for just a bronze. And I think that, you know, if you know what a card is good in Arena, you're not afraid to take multiples. So this will just help your, this sort of ability, the bonded thing. Just if the cards that have bonded are good, then it just further incentivizes you to take multiples. And I think I like that in Arena because I like to play a very consistent deck. So if I have good cards that I know have a consistent floor, and the keyword bonded lets me get upgraded effects for playing good cards that are already good. Sorry, that incentivize me to play cards that I already think are good, and they just get better. Then hey, why not, right? So yeah, I think this card's pretty useful, especially for bronze. So I'll keep an eye out for it, because another thing too, the bleeding helps with the shields, which is something that I'm kind of worried about, and I'll discuss that in the later cards. So yeah. Next up, I got an Imperial Diviner, which has Assimilate and Deploy Purify Unit. So Assimilate is, according to Nilfgaard, if you play a card that isn't in your starting deck, you can get 1 point, I think. I might have to recheck that, don't quote me on that one, but I think that's what it is, which I think is very interesting and constructed, because you have cards like Bribery, Rot Tosser, what are the other things that they mentioned? That one guy that copies tactics, stuff like that. But in Arena, I don't know how useful this will be, because I don't know how many cards you're going to get that create something, unless you play like, Runestones. Which actually, Runestones aren't bad, so maybe they'll get better value when you have an Assimilate card, so yeah, something to think about. Right now, I don't think it's going to be very powerful, but maybe. Who knows, right? Next up, Cintrian Artificer. It has Formation and Order, give an allied unit a shield. So Formation says that it gets a different ability whether you play it on the melee row or range row. So for the melee row, the Artificer gets Zeal, and on the range row it gets +1 to boosted. And I think that's pretty sick, because I like modal cards. And the fact that you can give it Zeal to give something a shield means you can give them protection for 1 turn, like for the next damage right away. So it gives you value right there. And if you need some points, you can give it 1 more point on its body, and hopefully it'll protect itself, so you can get value with the order the next turn. Like, I don't know, I like that little, like, if you need it now, then you could do it. If you need it later, here, help you survive a little bit. It just gives itself a free Meave boost, right? So yeah, I think Formation is going to be super duper sick. And Shield, which we haven't talked about yet, but I'll talk about it now, is that it says it prevents the next source of damage to like a unit, not source of damage, but the next instance of damage, sorry. So that means that if, let's say, I have a Chiron-X and I hit something for 4 that has a shield, just negates it. But that also means that if I ping it for 1 with Croc, it goes away too. Now I think that shield is going to be really, really annoying in Arena, only because I don't think there's going to be a lot of consistent pings. Because without consistent pings, then shields might stick around. Like, can you imagine in the last round, like, let's say you have 1 card left, you have a Chiron-X, right? Or something big like, you have Ada's ability, right? You want to play your big card at the end and use Ada's ability, and your opponent has lots of 5 power cards, 4 power cards, but he has 1 8 or more power card, just 1. And the turn before he plays a card that gives something shield, gives it a shield, and now you're just SOL, right? Because you're going to be losing points. And you don't have any pings, or it could be happening anywhere in the match. I don't know. I just think that without pings, shield's going to be really, really good, because it can block damage, and it's going to get, it's going to make you waste a lot of damage on trying to get value out of it, because you can use it to protect something that needs to be protected. So your opponent might just use the damage on something less valuable that he knows he can get more points out of, but not exactly the one he wants. I don't know how to explain it, but I guess you know what I mean. It makes your opponent choose suboptimal plays unless they can, deal with the shield. But yeah, so I think shield's gonna be really good. Same thing with Formation. So NR is actually looking pretty good, the cards anyway, for Arena. Next up is Forest Whisperer. Deploy melee, give an enemy unit poison. Poison's great. Deploy range, give an allied unit a shield. So this card here, this whole package, super duper sick. I definitely like it a lot. So, I mean, it can be super offensive, finish something off that already has a poison counter, or give it a shield, but you already know how I feel about that. So, yeah, next up, we got Svalbold Fanatic. Berserk, transform into a Bear Abomination, and we've talked about the Bear Abomination. It's 5 mana doomed, and Berserk is a keyword for Skellige, where if it's damaged for half HP, it triggers. And as I said, everything here in the game is rounded up. So if they have 7, or 5 would be a better example. If they have 5 power here, and you bring it down to 3, then the Berserk will trigger. And for this one, it turns into a 5 power bear that has Doomed. And I think this card is pretty sick. I mean, first of all, it's 4. So it breaks that little barrier where bronzes can't really kill it in one hit. Actually, if a bronze starts to shoot it for 3, it'll, turn into a abomination. And you need to use stuff like Chironex, so far anyway, Chironex and stuff to hit it, and that'll kill it, but then they're using a premium gold's vest or something. They're using a premium gold's damage to kill this bronze. And even if you make it bleed, then it'll just, turn into a abomination. I don't know. I just think, and its power at 4 is so close to the 5 of the Bear Abomination that, like, all your opponent's doing, it has no incentive to ping it at all. So it just gets to stay where it is, and if it doesn't ever trigger, then you only really lost 1. You really didn't just get 1 point, but, like, who cares, right? Like, I think it's just so sick. So yeah, this card I think is going to be really, really good in Arena as a, just like a filler card that you might need, a bronze that you might need, that you'll always be happy to have in your deck. Next up, we got and Berserk for Arena I think is going to be really good, because then it puts your opponent in awkward spots, because they want to damage your unit, but because of Berserk they kind of don't want to. And apparently all of them are going to be positive. I couldn't really tell from what they said in the dev stream whether this is the only one that has a negative effect and everything else is going to be positive, but I think they're leaning towards more positive Berserk effects than negative, so that's a good trend. Next up is Sursa. It has Harmony, deploy, damage enemy by 2, death blow, boost unit in your hand by 2. So this has Harmony, which is amazing, and if it kills something, it boosts something more, so it can be like basically an 8-point play, and which can grow. This card is just bonkers. I like this card a lot, so definitely something to look out for. Nothing much more to say there. Watchman, order, give an adjacent unit a shield. I think that's kind of sick. Your opponent might be more inconvenienced by the shield, so he'll need to use something to deal with this, and it's 4 points, so it needs quite a bit of removal of commitment in your opponent's part. So yeah, definitely a card to look out for. Disgrace Brawler, Bloodthirst 3, lock this unit. Berserk, destroy this unit, and it's 7 power. So I think this card will be really, really good in Arena, because so let's say your opponent has a card that has been hurt, and then he puts a shield on it. That doesn't count as a healing or anything like that. So I think that if you can reliably trigger Bloodthirst, obviously this card is just bonkers for bronze, just 7 power, and kind of like the ice giant or whatever, right? So yeah, I'll look out for this card. Maybe I'm being hopeful, because who knows, maybe you won't be able to trigger Bloodthirst as much, but with bleeding and stuff like that, might be good. Next up, Treant Mantis Stalk. Ambush, give the next unit played by your opponent poison and transform into Treant Mantis Strike. Zeal, order, transform into Treant Mantis Strike. And I think Treant Mantis Strike is 6 power. And yeah, this card I think is pretty sick. Your opponent could play around it kind of, but I mean, again, it's traps, so they have to really be kind of predicting. It's good for maybe at the end game where you can play it as your second last card, and you have last say, so your opponent has to play their card. Then when you play their card, their final big play. Let's say it's like a spear tip. Boom, it gets poison. You can play your last card to give it poison again and then shoot it. I don't know. I think this card is pretty sick because then it's 6 points, right? And you give something poison. So worst comes to worst, it's just a 6-point card. So yeah, not a big deal for you. Windhelm of Atra. Shield every allied turn on turn end. Boosts this unit by 2 if it has a shield. So this one obviously needs to be built around, you need to keep giving it shields to make it get value, but even if it's left alone for 1 turn, it gets 2 points, and then your opponent has to ping it. If they have no pings, maybe they need to put like a 4 power, burn ability against it, or like again, Kyrenex or Vess, some of the other common ones, or 3 damage here and there from the Nausicaa guy that deals 3 damage to something that's boosted. But then on your next turn, you just put a slap of shield on it again with just one of your random shield cards, and they have to deal with it all over again. I think this guy would secretly be good. 4 points on his own, and then he has the ability to grow further and further, or waste a card from your opponent that needs to get rid of shields, and if you put a shield on him again, it just gets worse and worse for your opponent. So definitely something to look out for. I think this card will be really good. Maybe I'll pick it and try it, so maybe we can get a good idea whether it's a good enough card to build around. I probably pick it. See, there's a reason to pick it early so you can build into shields, but I also probably would. I think I'd more pick it late when I have 2 to 3 shield enablers. Yeah, that's probably a good number, I guess. Again, who knows? But I think them having to deal with it 2 to 3 times plus its own shield might be enough to, really inconvenience your opponent into a win for you. Next up, Vivienne de Tabris. Deploy, set units powered equal to its cost. So, for example, big provision cost units that have low power but big abilities. I think this card could be pretty sick. And for example, I don't know, I can see the uses of it being, you take a utility card, and again, you have to know the provision cost of your card in Arena. And let's say you play Yurden or something, or you play, I don't know, something like this guy. I think this guy has 10 provisions, right? And then you smack him a bunch of times or whatever, and then your opponent tries to hurt him, and then at the end you just pop him into 10 points. It's just, I don't know, it just seems sick that you can just reset something. And if they try to get frisky and use a engine that gets large, like a Nausicaa Sergeant, or that one guy, I forget his name, the Alba Infantry, I think is what it is. No, I can't remember. The Alba Cavalry, the one that grows every turn. You can just let that go as long as it wants, and then just boom, reset you. So I think this card's good for defensive purposes and offensive purposes. So definitely one to look out for. The points are low, but if you know your provision costs really well, then you could really do some damage with this card. King Ragnar. Deploy, melee, remove shields from all units, then boost self by 3 for every shield removed. So you need to remove at least 2. I think he's 10 provisions for 10, but in Arena you don't really care about provision cost. But this guy has obviously an unlimited ceiling, and the floor is not bad if you get 2 or even just 1 shield, because then it becomes 7 points. But as I said before, I think shields you're going to have a lot of shields flying around, and you can't remove them all, right? And I think at the end, when you play this guy and everybody has shields on, your shields haven't been used, your opponent's shields hasn't been used, you guys ran out of pings, Ethne's done with her pings, there's no more pings from Herald, from doing the 1 damage to everyone, and then you just drop this guy, you might just get a massive body. So, but again, I don't know, maybe shields aren't that prevalent, maybe shields don't last that long. I don't know. I'm thinking that there's going to be a lot of shields flying around, because it's going to be cards you want to pick in Arena. You see a card that says give something shield, you just take it because of just the infinite value that it could probably give you. So yeah, I think this guy might be good. And again, I don't know if I'll pick him early or late. I'll probably pick him late, just so, as I said with Windhelm, like if I have ways to give shields, so that way I can give my unit shields and then eat it later. But again, you're not really, how can I say this? You don't really need that to happen, because I mean your opponents can play shields too. So you don't know how many shields your opponents are playing, right? So maybe they might be playing none. Maybe they didn't get any shield cards. So, but if they did, this is also a great card, because you can just wipe all their shields out offensively and just start killing their units and getting a huge stack of points for yourself. Or maybe you need to remove just one shield from one problematic unit, and then kill it with Ada's ability or something. So yeah, I don't know. I think this card will be good, even if you pick it early or late. Even if you have just like 1 or 2 shield enablers, because chances are, I don't think you'll really consume your own shields. I think you're consuming your opponents. So yeah, good card, like it. Artist, ranged. Whenever this unit is played, damages it by half its power. Whenever a unit is played, round it up. And also it triggers on your side and your opponent's side. So this card, I don't think is very good in Arena. I don't know if they'll offer it, but it's just, you have to have all Berserk cards, and I think that that's more of a constructed thing, because I mean, all it does is really just, I mean, what if your opponent has Berserk cards and you're just giving him value? What if you don't have any? You know what I mean? It's just too, I don't know. I think this card is a constructed thing, so I really wouldn't worry about having it in I wouldn't worry about picking it. I don't think it'd be a high pick for me. And the last few keywords that we didn't talk about were dominance and vitality. So dominance is basically the keyword that's on Wild Hunt Riders, or the ability that's on Wild Hunt Riders, sorry, or any of the Wild Hunt units, where if you have the highest unit on the field, something triggers. And the last thing is vitality, which is the reverse of bleed, where every turn it gets up, you get ticked up by 1. And the way they explain it is that if you have a thing that has vitality 6, and sorry, it has bleed 2 on it currently, like your guy has 2 bleeds left on it, and you give it 6 vitality, now it has 4 vitality, just like a plus minus game. And that's how that's gonna work when you give something bleed when it has vitality, or vice versa. But yeah, those are my picks, or sorry, not my picks, sorry. Those are my thoughts on these new cards. And oh, one more thing I want to discuss, the lock changes. Locks don't remove statuses like shields or bleeds or poison. All they do is remove the ability that's on the card, including doomed, because I think doomed is an ability that they have in their description. So like, you know, give this unit doomed, then it'll have doomed in red. But yeah, other statuses like as I said, bleed, shield, vitality, those stay even if you try to lock it. And interestingly enough, lock is a status, so that can be removed by purify. So yeah, both purify and lock both remove doomed, because I guess doomed is a little star on the side of your card, and it's also you know, in the type line in your card, so it's both lockable and purifiable. But yeah, is that even a word? I don't know. Anyway, thanks for joining me in my first video of showing my face and talking about something other than playing Arena. There's more to come for me. I think what I want to do in my next Arena runs is I'm going to start marking up stuff, like circling stuff and, you know, drawing arrows to see what my my thought process is on what I'm targeting. But I don't know if I want to do it live or review a match, or record a match and then review it after and upload that as the, you know, the gameplay for that match. So let me know what you guys think about that idea. It's something that I'm playing around with. I just want to be more creative with the way I make videos and stuff like that. So you guys have maybe a more visual, if you have a visual approach, you get to see more stuff. And if you like to see arrows and me writing stuff and writing out points, it'll help you visualize better when I say things, and you guys can look at, maybe you skip ahead to a video, you can see where my thought process has been going. So yeah, so right now I'm leaning towards recording a match and then afterwards going through it, marking up stuff, and then uploading that as the match itself, so you guys can see the match being played through and me reviewing it as I go. And I think reviewing it will make me a better player, and hopefully it'll inspire you guys to do the same. Anyway, at the bottom I have an overlay now, so those are my social media links. Subscribe to them or follow me on them so you guys can get some updates. And thank you guys for joining me for this video, and I'll see you guys next time. See you later.